Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I'm excited for you to meet Erin Clifford. She is a wellness consultant and takes a really holistic approach to health that empowers professionals and individuals to incorporate appropriate lifestyle changes that are going to produce real and lasting results. And I'm excited to dive into this because I think we're always looking for different kind of options, different choices, because every day looks different. I know we were just talking about like just getting through Monday when we're off camera, and just kind of looking at, the different ways to incorporate wellness into how we lead, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, and taking these practices so that it feels like it's working with us and not against us.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. But can you share a little bit more about your background and your journey and kind of what got you here?
Sure. So, I've always been interested in health and wellness growing up. And then when I first started working, when I graduated from college, I worked as a high school English teacher. I taught English for 5 years. And, I noticed a lot that just like me, a lot of my students and their families, were struggling with different things around wellness, and a lot of like stress, mental health concerns. And so I was really debating, going and becoming a counselor or going to law school because I come from a family of lawyers and I really wasn't sure. So I ended up going to law school, but something really interesting happened. When I graduated from law school, I saw the same thing, even with just, my colleagues in the legal profession, they were really struggling too. Like, a lot of my students and their families were. So it really inspired me just to realize no matter where you are, what you have going on in life, we all need to find our own avenues to have, an approach to wellness. So I ended up going back and getting certified as a health and wellness coach, and then eventually did go and get that master's in mental health counseling, which for me really tied everything together. And for a long time, I was kind of like, you went on this journey, all these different directions, but it was really helpful because even just working in the legal profession, I know what it's like to be really busy and, have all this stuff going on in your professional life, but then also, right, trying to make things work for your families and all the other things you have going on in your personal lifestyle domains. So it's really helpful to kind of tie that all into what I like to hopefully give people, like a holistic, harmonious view of wellness.
That's great. So when somebody comes to work with you, kind of, is it through businesses? Is it individual? Like, what does that look like?
Sure. So I do in some individual coaching. And so when I wrote my book, I really kind of tried to write it in a way where you felt like I was coaching you. And then I also do a lot of corporate coaching. So I will go and do programming, once a quarter for certain corporations or law firms. I might go in and do a one-off program or do some consulting to help different companies, create some wellness programs for their employees. Because, we know when you have, healthy, happier employees, it really does translate to having, more productivity in the office too.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit more about your book and your framework? Like what is kind of what you're teaching?
Sure. So I'm really trying to teach about, wellness in a holistic way. So I really think, being well doesn't just encompass the physical stuff like we think of. It also needs to have, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness. And I really came up with the idea of having this concept of harmonious living. So how can you make all your different life domains work for you in a way that, is conducive to what you're values and your priorities are. And even when you are thinking about, whether you've got a personal goal, professional goal, or just a lifestyle goal, how you can really make it become, a part of your everyday life. I think wellness should be a part of you, not like a
Mhm.
second, thing or a second job, right? There's so many strict programs and plans out there. And I really wanted just to teach people how they can make wellness work with their own unique life.
Absolutely, because they're not separate. Like you said, if you're not well at work, it's going to affect you at home. If you're not well at home, it's going to affect you at work. And like you said, it's not just that physical wellness. I talk about mental fitness.
Yeah.
Similarly to physical fitness, we have to take care of the whole package of ourselves in order to be successful in any area.
Yeah. I love that. The whole package.
So if someone were listening right now and only just heard this episode, what would be like one or two things that you would want them to take away from this as far as like something to focus on or where they could start just in their own journey in this?
Yeah, so one thing I think that's important to take away is just to realize that, when it comes to wellness, especially like self-care, something is better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tendency in our fast-paced world to, really think we've got to go, 100% into something, but, sometimes that's not the way our life works. We might have like a really busy week, or you might have an unexpected illness, or maybe you're traveling, or something's going on in your family or at your job where you don't have time to necessarily do everything in your routine. So I always just try to, tell people, something is better than nothing. Even just these little wins can add up. So maybe you don't have time to take that hour workout class you wanted to take because something came up, but can you still do a 10-minute workout, or, go for a little walk, stretch a little bit, or if you, reschedule it for another day that week, instead of, if you really crave it, the burger, maybe have the burger with the salad, right? And
Yeah.
skip the fries. Like, just all these little wins and all these little things we add in just add up to so much. And so I always like to, impart that onto people. And really the idea that, you've got to take care of yourself. I love that idea of the oxygen mask girl. Every time we
Mm-hmm.
fly, flight attendants tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before you assist others. Because if you want to be at your best and really be there for people, be there for, the different career avenues that you have, you've got to make sure you're taking care of ourselves. And, self-care is just not selfish. And I think sometimes we,
Mm-hmm.
especially too, I work with a lot of people that are kind of in the helping professions, and they take such good care of everybody, or you take care of everyone in your family. But, when do you give yourself that little bit of self-care? When do you give yourself that time?
Absolutely. And I love to talk about self care. My listeners know I see it as a daily necessity, just like
Yeah.
sleeping and eating. You wouldn't have
Mhm.
something to eat on Sunday and think you're not starving by Tuesday, and those micro moments throughout your day and having these options, it allows you to pivot, like you said, because every day is going to look different
Yeah.
and how you fit it in is going to be essential. So I would love to hear a little bit, kind of a little peek behind the curtain. I think so many times we help others, but sharing maybe some of your own strategies and routines. What does your day look like? What works for you to kind of find that balance?
Yeah, so like one thing for me, I always tell people, what's your jam? Like, what is the one thing that you've got to get in like on a daily or weekly basis? And so for me, one thing that's really important is movement.
Mm-hmm.
It really, not only does it help me physically, but it really impacts like my mental health if I'm not moving. But sometimes, I'm busy and I don't have time to get in my long workouts, or especially like even now, I've been doing all this extra stuff with my book. My schedule is all over the place, but I still try to get, at least 4 days a week where I'm getting some movement in, even if it's just like at home, like, doing some stretching and getting some of my I do PT. I've got some orthopedic issues. I kind of get my PT sessions in, and then, get my workouts in when I can, even if they're a little bit smaller than they might be during my busy times. But that really helps me. I'm a big fan of meal prepping. Like, I actually love to cook. I talk about this in my book a little bit. I grew up cooking with my grandma. And so for me, when I'm home, if I'm able to cook, that's really essential. And I don't always cook complicated things. If I'm really busy one week and I've got to pick up that roast chicken at the grocery store and make a couple sides, I do, you
Yep.
know, but at least I feel like I'm kind of still having that experience. And I like to bring my food with me when I come into the office is really helpful. And, just really having, spending time with my community, my friends and family. And even when I get busy, I try to make time for them. And
Mhm.
even if it's just my husband and I are, don't have, the same schedule some weeks, but when we do, we put our phones away when we're having dinner together.
Yeah.
I think all these little things that we can do are just really helpful. But for me, I've got to have some of those essential things. And then, of course, making time for sleep.
Hmm.
If I don't, one or two nights of not great sleep, I can be, okay, not my best, but I can make it. But if there's like a period of time where I'm really struggling with sleep, that's definitely something that I know kind of knocks me out.
Hmm. Yeah, I always love to talk about too, the way these all work
Mhm.
together. They're not necessarily in
Yeah,
isolation, like you talk about sleep. And I know if I don't get a great night's sleep, I'm going to be cranky and irritable maybe the next
for
day. And so
sure.
my relationships are
Yeah,
affected. I crave carbs, and so I don't eat as
yeah,
great. And
yeah.
so just that kind of synergy between all the things we do, they're not necessarily even random, but they all have their place and their intention in how our day flows and works for us.
Yeah, exactly. I know everything kind of builds on one another. And one of the ways I'm really able to kind of get the stuff I need in is, I'm a big fan of having boundaries in life.
Hmm.
I really think that limits liberate you, right? If I have certain rules or boundaries in place, then I kind of have the freedom to live my life the way I want to. So, whether it is that self-care, whether it's just making sure I don't have too many extra things on my plate, right? We all have, work and family stuff that are obligations, things we need to do. But, how often do we say yes to a few too many extras? And then you look at
Yeah.
your calendar and you're like, because to me, then it's, no matter what self-care I do, if I put too much on my plate, that does really impact me as well.
Yeah. And I love that phrase. I hadn't heard that before. I talk about boundaries a ton. That's my favorite B word, but limits liberate you. I think that is such a great way to reframe it
Yeah.
and be able to use it as something that empowers you, as well as a great way to kind of translate that to other people, so
Hmm.
that they see it from that same perspective that you do.
For sure.
So when you're working with leaders in this sense as well, does it kind of overlap in the same way, whether it's at home or at work, or are there kind of some different pitfalls that you see coming up?
I think things overlap a lot, but I feel like one thing that people struggle with is, sometimes when I work with someone, they're like, I really feel like I'm thriving in this domain.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm thriving in the other one, And so that's really where I kind of try to help people with that harmony concept.
Hmm.
When I think of balance, I think of like percentages. So I just don't think work-life balance, when you think about it in those terms, like we do sometimes, is ever achievable, right? We're always gonna have a little more going on here and a little more going on there. So I really try to, help people with finding avenues to really, still feel like they're thriving in both their life domains, and appreciate that that's okay. I mean, I work with a lot of leaders who actually really like their jobs.
Hmm.
They're passionate about what they do. So they're like, I do want to spend some good amount of time at this point in my life in this, so how can I still, though, make sure I am making time for my family, for my friends, for my self-care, or whatever kind of personal development contribution, whatever else that you want to, put forth into the world. But I think a lot of times it's, people are really like, I just don't have enough time. So one of the things I really try to do with people is, how can we sit down and navigate things better so you feel like you have a little bit more time? I mean, even just a
Hmm.
simple thing, with time management. I can always get people to get time back if we look at how often we spend time on social
Yeah.
media. Scrolling down like an email. Oops, I saw that, aloe yoga, and I clicked on it, and all of a sudden, right, I'm looking around online. So I think there's lots of avenues. If we can be more efficient with our time, we can get a little bit of it back to then spend on those extra things that we want to do.
Hmm. Yeah. And especially then when we look at it from, like you said, the perspective of it doesn't have to be a ton of time. It's
Mhm.
so much easier to find small bits of time
Yeah,
and build on them rather than thinking I need to block out a whole hour or a whole half a day for a massage or whatever you're looking to take care of yourself with.
for sure.
And so, one of the areas of self care I always love to ask my guests about as well is self care, because I think it's underutilized, but so powerful when we really take intention to focus on that gratitude. And so, what would you say are some of the areas, maybe one or two things that you're the most grateful for?
You know what? I'm just really grateful for just all the people in my life that support me. I feel so blessed. I have a wonderful family, and we're all really close. Some of us work together, and so I just feel really fortunate that I get to spend time with my people all the time, and that's one way I've been able to kind of integrate, right, some of my different life domains. And I'm just really grateful for just all the opportunities like I have in life. Since I came into the coaching space, I've just met so many people, and I love to meet people. I love to learn new things. I learned so much too, doing the corporate wellness. I'll go into a program and I try to get everyone to talk because everyone's their own expert. And some of
Right.
us have such great ideas. So, I really try to have an open mind when I go and connect with people, because really those connections are just like so absolutely important to me, and they just really give me that joy and gratitude that, I think I need to thrive.
I love that. That's great. So where can people find you, Erin? How can they order your book? How can they work with you?
Yeah, so I have on my website, you can reach me, erincliffordwellness.com. I also have a book out, which is available on Amazon and all your major retailers, and on Instagram and all your social channels. I'm at Erin Wellness.
Awesome. And what's the title of that book again?
It's Wellness Reimagined, a holistic approach to health, happiness, and harmony.
Awesome. And those links will definitely be live in the show notes below. So please connect with Erin. Thank you so much for all those little insights and simple ways to start integrating some of these holistic changes in your day-to-day life.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.